Now that I have the drive shaft back on, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to find the center. I thought about doing it into the lathe, and I was like, why am I doing it in the lathe? I have a point there that's secure it, and this point up here will secure it. Why don't I just do it on the tractor? So this is what I got going on. What I'm doing is I'm watching the needle, and as it fluctuates, that means this is not true. Okay? So if you look at it, you can see how it moves. What I'm doing is I'm finding the high spot, and then I'm taking a hammer and I'm just lightly tapping in the tube, maybe a little more persuasive at times, but I'm trying to get it trued where it needs to go. And then after I get this secure, I'll take the welder and I'll just weld just a few small beads on here just to make sure that stays. And then after I check it again, make sure nothing moved, nothing tweaked, I'll weld it up. Because you don't want this to be off balance. And what I mean off balance, if it's welded at an angle like this, it's gonna start flopping, create a vibration. Bad things happen, so we don't wanna do that. But this method here I think is working out pretty good. And to be honest, that's pretty darn close. Like, that's really close. Right there's a high spot. I don't think this thing's perfectly true because it really jumped there. Let me move this, just move it a tiny bit. Man, I'll tell you, that's pretty close. That I think right there is where I want to keep it. I don't think this tube here or this ring that they welded, or it just, there's one spot in it, I've watched it. The dial moves real quick and then it goes right back, and then it just kind of barely fluctuates, and then it gets to a certain spot, moves real quick, comes back. That to me, there's something not true on that. But overall, it's pretty consistent. I'm happy with it. I don't think I'll ever notice a problem with it. So we're gonna tack that together, and then I'll start on this other one, because I don't want to tap on that side. It might affect this side and get this off balance. So yeah, I like it. Oh, my leg's falling asleep. All right, let's glue a couple spots on it. Get the hot glue gun. Oh yeah, feel the power. Let's glue it. That looks good. I'm happy. Let's glue this together. Okay, one down. A few more to go. Of course, I had to put my hat on the very top. And a short guy like me. Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that. I really do like how it's turning out. Looks beautiful. The next drive shaft that I gotta do, basically from the center of the tractor to where the universal joint goes is 1 foot exactly. So we need to do 2 feet for this one. Now, what I want to make sure is I make it, I got to extend this out. Oh, got to think about this for a little bit. I was going to make it 1 inch shorter, but that doesn't give it enough room to collapse when it turns. So I might have to find a happy medium spot where I'll pull this about halfway out so I can know where that is. Well, no, I need to go all the way out, find how much I have, go halfway in. I got to think about this for a little bit. Anyways, I got to make a piece from here to here. I got to figure out what the distance is going to be. After thinking it through, I decided, you know what, I better be on the safe side. Let's go ahead and machine and build the bracket for the carrier bearing. So then that way I can figure exactly where that slip drive shaft will be. I'll rotate the tractor, make sure I have enough movement, and then I don't cut it too close. So what I need to do here is I bought this component here, and then I found this bearing, but the problem I got to deal with is this lip here, I need to cut it back. I need to get a little bit more room on that. And I might have to cut this one here back a little bit too. But I also need to make sure that shoulder will fit perfect inside that bearing. So I'm going to go ahead, chuck this up in the lathe, get it pretty true, and then I'm going to knock this shoulder here back, take it off, and then there's plenty of meat. Don't worry, there's lots of meat inside here. I'm not going to cause any structural problems, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, let's cut this thing apart, or not cut it apart, trim it down so it'll fit. And I need some eye protection, and this shall do. All right. So here's what I got going on. This lip right here, I need to knock it off because it's just, I need all the room I can get for this bearing, but I'm going to keep this surface here the same. So basically knock this lip off. I might cut in a little bit more. There's tons of meat in the inside. I'm not worried about structure. And then on this one, what I'll have to do is I'm going to have to cut this down here a little ways. So it's the same diameter as right here, so it fits inside of your bearing. The two will sandwich the bearing, and there'll be plenty of surface, and it'll be tight. I'm not worried about it all. So I've got my live center to hold this in, so I can cut that lip off, go from there. Let's machine it. There we go. All right, I think I'm done with it. I did shave off, so this part here, they didn't machine it at all. And as I was spinning in the lathe, I noticed there's a big chunk of steel on here that was not centered, and my lathe was just kind of slightly vibrating, and I was like, you know what? Nope. If we're gonna try to make this true, I'm going to slightly knock this down just to make sure there's no weight on the opposite side so you don't create a vibration. Will it matter? Probably not. But you know what? If I can make it a little bit smoother, I'm going to try. Now, these splines are very, very tight. Like, they don't want to go apart because it took me a while to get these apart, and putting them together, I'm going to use a press. What's nice about this is as I press it together, I'll have this nut here that I can sandwich and squeeze that block tight so that bearing can't move. And then the bearing also has set screws here that I can screw into the shaft here, and then that way it will not move, it won't spin on it. I'm not worried at all. So I'm going to take this over to the press. We'll press this on, we'll tighten it up, and then the next step I got to do is figure out how to build my bracket to either mount to the transmission or mount it to the tractor and get that built. So let's do that. Let's press it together and move to the next step. That is gorgeous. Oh man, I I love it when I get stuff machined very, 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 very well. So there's a split pin that goes right inside this little hole, and that keeps the nut from spinning off. And I'm like spot on. I mean, you know, I'm sorry, it's like this. You know, that makes me happy. This really does make me happy when I get stuff right, because I only have one of these, and I don't want to buy another one if I screw it up, and I don't want to weld on it and then turn it back down if I don't have to. So that's a win. So then, with this thing spinning like that, we're gonna have one of these bolted to there. Oh, it's good. I love it. Oh, I love it so much. Okay, I will tighten that nut up, put a split pin in there, and then I don't think to be honest, I don't think they sent me a split pin. No, I don't see one, but that's okay. I got tons of them, like lots. And if I don't have any, I'll make one. All right, move on to the next thing. Oh yeah, perfect. So I'm sitting up on top of the tractor here, looking down at the transmission, looking at that beautiful thing that I just created. Well, I didn't create it, I put it together. And I was trying to figure out, do I make a support on the tractor? Do I go from here and then a pillow block? And it's like, you know, but then I gotta make that to unbolt from the tractor when you're pulling the transmission out and all that stuff. You know what, I wanna tie it to the transmission. And so I figured, and this is what I'm gonna do. These transmissions came with a bracket and a brake kit that bolts right on the back of this cone where the yoke is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna take the brake kit off that other transmission. I'm not gonna cut that bracket up because I don't wanna tamper with it. I wanna keep it together in case somebody needs it or if we choose to use it in the future. Now, obviously we're not gonna use it on this tractor because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bolt a flange right there on that housing where the yoke is that's gonna come up and it's gonna have a pillow block bolts for this thing to bolt to. So now that unit will be right above here, and then I'll make that short drive shaft right there, and then I'll make the short drive shaft to the doohickey that's gonna go there. Get it? So, what I'll have to do is I'll have to pull this yoke off, and then I'm gonna have to measure the diameter that I need to make and the holes, and then I'm gonna take a 1/2 inch plate of steel that I have and pop a big hole in it, some other holes, bolt that to that, and then I'll figure out my height of how far I need to go up, and then I'll figure out my flange to bolt that to it. So if I need to pull this transmission or something else, basically, you just take this drive shaft off, the whole mechanism, everything here comes out with the transmission. So I think that's a good plan at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. By the way, these ladders are nice. Oh yeah. So I'll take the plasma cutter, and this doesn't have to be like a perfect hole. So I'm gonna try to make it as perfect as possible, but I'm gonna cut a hole right here. There's gonna be 4 other holes where it's gonna bolt onto. If I really wanna go to the work to set it up on the end mill and get that boring bar and bore it out the exact same diameter, because they've got a little lip on the back of that yoke housing, I could do that. Or I just cut it out and then I slightly grind the inside until it fits perfect, and then put some bolts in it, and I think that's the direction I'm gonna go. The perfectionist in me that tries to strive to be a perfectionist wants to do the end mill, but the extra time of doing all that, I don't know. Sometimes you gotta pick and choose your battles. Some things matter, other things don't. This right here just needs to be bolted solid against the transmission, and there's like no stress on this at all for that drive shaft. Like, it's not gonna matter. So I think I'm just gonna plasma it out and then just see how it goes. Oh no. Yeah. Couldn't help myself. I couldn't leave it like that. I just love making more work for myself. Okay, let's do this. That doesn't look too bad. But I think what I'm going to do, instead of taking that yolk off, I'm just going to slice right here and right here, cut this bottom out, and then I can just slide it right down from the top, and I won't have to take the yolk off. I mean, there's no point of doing that. So, and structurally wise, I got tons of structure on both sides here for 1/2 inch plated steel. So I'm going to cut this off, and let's slide it over there and get the holes marked out, and we can drill those holes. Or ironwork or those holes. We'll see. Yeah, I'm gonna cut those out.
Oh, I just got back to the shop after about a week and a half of being MIA. Got hit hard with some nasty sickness. So I'm still on the mend. I don't have my energy back, but I'm back in the shop, and there's some stuff going on here. Wow. Man, they've done a good job. That looks awesome. Looks awesome. I see he's working on his PTO, getting that all figured out. Pretty cool. So get my energy back, and I'll be joining in full force again, and we'll keep going on this. Wasn't really planning on wasting a week of good build time in bed, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Now, I turned the tractor so it's all the way, well, turned, and that's what I needed to know. It's about 1.75 inches shorter as it's turned. So when you're straight in line, you're 2 feet from this point to this point, which means a foot in the center of the tractor. When you turn the tractor, it shortens that drive shaft about 1.75 inches. So I cut it a little bit shorter than that, so that way there's enough play and it won't bind in case if it ever does. But here's my tube, and instead of heating like I did on that one, what I'm thinking about trying to do is take the press, take off this end right here, stick it in here. I'm gonna press it in, and then this one here, I'll try to do the same thing and see how that works. And if it doesn't work very well, then we'll heat it up a little bit, expand the tube a tiny bit, slide it right in. But this time, I'm gonna try to line it up where the yolks are centered and I don't have to try to twist it. So we'll see how close I get, but yeah, let's go line it up and then press it. That's pretty cool. All right, so I might as well straighten the tractor out now that I don't need to have it bent like this. And then I'll move on to the next one. I still have to balance this thing, make sure it's true like I did with the other one, and then weld it all up. But so far I like how it's sitting, and these are lined up. We're good.
Oh, all right.
Oh, that's cool looking.